team 2 is going to be Unstoppable and his team of some gamers. We got ourselves Titanius, we got ourselves Spyco Vet, No Bellisaurus, otherwise known as Belly, and Archeorc, who barely got to play the last game, playing as a Fire Mage, versus Fluff God X, didn't get to play last game at all. Ayaz got to play a little bit, but probably not in the matchup he wanted to. Also, by the way, great Mog. Sleepy on that team as well, with Violent and Loggy. Violent never even got a chance to play. Good luck, have fun, everybody. Is Ayaz playing... I thought it'd be Smasher for a moment, for some reason. I think it's because I saw Crows and I was like, oh, probably BM. Because I usually see BM play Crows, or used to, because they don't actually anymore. Gonna be a big old meteor coming down. Arhi trying to make some damage happen. Gonna be great at Fade. Immediately out of Violent, trying to go for a bit of cast. Getting interrupted on Shadow though. Arhi are going in for big combustion, trying to make some damage happen. As he got the Shadow interrupt, Violent still has it dispersed. If they need to use it, does drop a PI. Is gonna have the PI stolen by Archeorc. My PI now, as he gets himself a fastest shift in power in the West. Silenced by Violent as he's trying to make some damage happen into a massive spell, as Arhi does go for a really early game Icebug. Poly onto Violent. I think he was expecting for a massive spell out of Violent, hitting him with the G-Pie. Violent is actually kind of out of cooldowns. Does have shift, but I probably should have mentioned that the rules of shift is not an ability one piece to use, because they have plenty of survivability right now compared to a BFA, but they couldn't use any at all. But I think Violent is setting up for maybe going for that Void Shift. That's going to be a little unfortunate. I guess not much you can really do with Violent using it or not using it, can I? Oh, going for the Shadow Word Death to break himself out of CC. Trying to make some damage happen back to Arhi, but Violent also taking a bit of damage himself. Door of Shadows available, is actually going to Nova him. He's like, nope, you ain't moving. As Archeorc is trying to control as much of this duel as he can. Gets his shields back up. Does still have Cauterize and Combustion coming up in 38 seconds. If he can get himself that cooldown reduction, there goes shifting power. Actually reducing the cooldown of that ability quite a bit though. Half of CD just gone. Breath onto Violent. Into a Poly, and that's going to be G-Power right after. Arche still finds himself low on health. Shrieking by Violent, burning the fear onto Archeorc here. Trying to purge him full of his shields, and does go for that silence with Void Torrent to follow. Arche lands that interrupt in the last second of the channel. Landing yet another Poly, short Poly onto Violent with a G-Bite to follow. Greater Fate does get him out of there. I think he still took a bit of damage, but I don't think it was G-Bite that she took damage from. Another breath by Archeorc trying to go for a Meteor. Combustion is available if he wants to do it. Violent is kind of low. Going in for big combustion. Going to be dispersed by Violent right after. Get himself a lot of self-heals available. And Arche does get the shields back up and running. Ultra Time has been used by the Mage. Only has Cauterize available as another defensive that should hopefully save him when he gets low on health. Another Poly onto Violent. Did he go for the Shadow Word Death? He went for a Trinket. I think he went for a health increase trinket, maybe. So Battle Masters. Or he get a hit with a silence. Trying to see if he can bail out of there. Looks like he did escape the Mind Games. Shifting power is available. Violent is just go for Mind Games right here. Fear. Mind Games most likely going to happen. Arche does not have an interrupt. Has a Meteor back up, but he is playing this very, very defensively for a bit. Until he gets some cooldowns back up. Stunned by the Shadow Priest. Does have a proper blink for it. That's going to be a Void Torrent for Arche. Taking a lot of damage there. Violent recovers quite a bit. And Arche does go for the images, does give him a little bit of defensive, but maybe not enough. Cauterize does get proc. Shield should absorb some of the Cauterize damage. And he is going to gain some health recovery from those shields absorbing the damage. Ultra Time available. Trying to see if he can blink into the room. Violent's going to have to chase after him. Does have a blink away or Ultra Time away. But Violent is making sure to hang around and camp kind of where Archeorc is and kind of where the Ultra Time is as well. And Arche, I think, might need to go for food or something. G-Pie, and looks he has the full setup ready. Violent has every defensive, though. Does he use the defenses here? Does Greater Fade out of it to stop the damage in place? That is still combustion available for Arche. Into an Ice Block. Try to go for a massive spell. Shadowman's available. If you can only get a kick on the Shadow, he'll be in a good spot. Fear onto Arche. Mind Games to follow. Just going to end up healing the Shadow Priest either way. Arche taking lots of damage from a Void Torrent. The shields might not be enough. The pod does get procced. And that's going to be some blasts available for Violent, taking out Arche. Not much you could really do. He had himself an out. Whoa. Okay, it looked like he lived for a second, but then he didn't. I hate the seed pod does that, dude. Because he can actually come out of the seed pod, but if there's like a spell traveling still to kill the seed pod, it'll still count and it'll just be like, oh, you're alive, psych. This is the worst. Spike going to be up next. Another Fire Mage versus Violent, though, man. The one thing about these mages, as much cooldown reduction as they have, Violent's ADs are always shorter. Even if you play the Nightfang Mage, G-Pie available, and Violent looks like he actually wants to go for Greater Fade and the G-Pie to the face either way, porting around versus Spike. Should be able to maybe get a setup. Spike didn't burn any with big cooldowns just yet. Silence of the Mage into a stun right after. Violent trying to set up for a Mind Games. Spike can still go for a lot of damage here. All the time getting used really, really early. In case the cell does start dropping. Probably not a bad idea. Blink next to Violent. Into a breath right after. Poly to follow to have a big setup. Violent does have a trinket, does have disperse. And that's about all the CZs he really has to work with. Radiant Spark coming out for Spike. Violent might have to go for a disperse here. Does go for a disperse, knowing that Meteor is going to do a lot of damage. Does get out of the disperse for a short fear onto Spike. And this should be able to get some health recovery there following. Actually, so much health recovery. Nice use of disperse to just reduce a lot of the burst damage. And then recovered. The Shadow Priest could actually solidly heal themselves. Compared to how they used to be, where they literally couldn't heal themselves at all. G-Pie coming out for Spike yet again as he goes for Ring of Frost. As Violent does have some cooldowns coming back in again. Greater Fate available if they need to, as long as they don't get interrupted on it. Vamp Embrace is back up. Silence should be available as well. And PI coming up on only a few seconds. Violent has a nice setup. Goes in for a Silence into a stun into Spike. Mind Seer. Void Torn instead. Shifting it around a little bit. It looks like Spike took no damage from that one though. Not really sure what happened there. Trying to go for another Radiant Spark. Big combustion available again. Trying to make some damage happen here. Or was that his first combustion here? Was that Spike's first combust? How did he get the cooldowns back for it? Was 2 minutes really... Did 2 minutes really bypass that effect? I guess. Big dots available for Violent. Trying to go for Void Eruption onto Spike. Void Torrent to follow. Big damage on him. Does go for the Ice Block. It should be some recovery, but Violent is not going to let him recover at all. 40% dampener, taking him out with a big old Mind Games into a death. Shadow Ward death. Titania is going to be up next. Still playing the Incarnation. Is the Night Fae. Is Incarn any good? Is there actual play for Incarn anymore? I know that it used to be like Biss. Oh. I also just noticed he's also playing the Shriekwind Legend Trinket. From the first boss of Castle. Big damage to Violent though, as Violent trying to make some damage back to him is going to have Greater Fate for the Convoke, but Greater Fate does actually last exactly the same amount of time as Convoke. So while he didn't have anything to stop a Convoke, he had Greater Fate to deny the Convoke. Trying to get himself some more heals. Looks like no more interrupts available for Titanias, no bashes, no rake stuns, no nothing is going to hit him with a fear, and a Mind Games to follow right after with a big old Mind Flare to follow. Titania is looking for a more defensive play. Going to be a big old port for Violent, getting some more casts off and trying not to let the Feral count himself and kind of reset. Is actually super low on health. Could have went for a Shadow Ward death here. I don't know if he had a global spare available there. But Violent just turned it around. Took so much damage from Titanians. Incarn, Convoke, and then look at his health now. It looks like he basically traded health with the enemy. Big old bite available to Titanius yet again. Has a trinket if he needs to. Big Void Torrent available. Actually super low on health. Does get himself quite a lot of recovery. But a Silence is going to stop that for the moment. If Violent can get him low enough with a Shadow Ward Death, big Shadow Ward Death comes out, taking him out with an Execute, a belly up. Next Stormbolt, trying to turn the Shadow Priest's belly up. Goes in for the Night Fae knockdown Shockwave? Ancient Aftershock? Is that what's it called? Doesn't really hit Violent as the G-Pie did. Greater Fate did come out for that one. PI as well as Vamp Embrace available. Also has Disperse. So it looks like Violent is actually sitting pretty. And Belly almost eats a full fear, which is a warrior that should never happen. Trying to go for Reflect on the Mind Games. I don't think that actually worked though. It looks like the Mind Games still hit him either way. Stun short into Belly, trick out of it. Does go for every defensive available. Fear into a Stormbolt. Barely any health available. And the Shadow Ward Death should be the only thing that Violent really needs to do to take him out. Does have the C-Pot proc. It looks like it's going to be end for him. Violent doing quite a good job as a Shadow Priest, man. Playing it safe. Playing it a little bit more cautiously, not super ballsy, but he is getting the results. Unstoppable going to be up next. Silence on him immediately as Unstoppable rounds the bend. Violent making sure to punish him with every single dot and every single spell available for the damies. As Unstoppable just hanging around, dancing in front of Violent's face. Has the full pet setup and everything. Shadow Meld used there to stop the cast from Unstoppable for a second. Does have the full lasso, or half a lasso really. But Unstoppable should be okay, I think, for this duel. I actually wonder who wins here. Elemental Shaman or a Shadow Priest. Element Shaman with all the self-healing, or Shadow Prince with all the CC and decent heals. Big lava burst coming down. Oh, Violent! Swap self with somebody! Wait! Oh my god, that would have been and. Violent, letting you know ahead of time, normally swap. We usually not... We used to let priests run swap because they were really, really undertuned for BFA. But now that priests do as much damage as they do, we feel like priests don't really need the swap. He used to go for a lot of recovery if he can catch up. 42% dampener, they're not going to give him a lot of that possibility, and that duel should have been over when he had the lava burst set up on the Violet, but not much you can really do. But yeah, I guess I should go over the rules every time we do these duels, yeah? Just to make sure. Violent goes in for a 1v5 though. Pretty well done. Pretty well done. Priests weren't undertuned, they're just designed for 1v1. I guess so, yeah. I guess that's what I should have said, is they weren't bad for 1v1. They weren't bad undertuned, because they were pretty good.